My name is Tomieraie Brown, and I am originally from Las Vegas, Nevada. I got started in the business at a very young age. I've always wanted to be a singer and an entertainer. So at a very young age, I left Las Vegas, Nevada, and I moved to Los Angeles and started my own all-female rock and roll band called Hardly Dangerous. We were signed to Madonna, Maverick Records, to her record label, and it was a great time. That band lasted for about 15 years. I think my biggest influences have been Etta James, Janis Joplin, James Brown, Steve Perry, and Sarah Vaughan, probably my favorites. My first band, my all-female group, Hardly Dangerous, we did release a record through Maverick Records. We did tour all over the United States, and we did do Japan. But you know, that was the 80s, and there was a 80s rock and roll surgence that was happening at that time. And when the 90s came in and grunge music came into play, that glamorous rock and roll thing that everybody was doing in Hollywood at that time, it kind of like anybody signed at that point got dropped if you weren't Nirvana, you know. So at that point I left Los Angeles and came back to Las Vegas, where I started doing Legends in Concert and doing Janis Joplin impersonation show. I met James Brown in Las Vegas when I was doing Legends in Concert, and at the time he had needed a lead soloist. He needed a lead soloist on the stage with him, and a background singer to join also with the Bittersweets. But somebody that could basically handle the stage so that he could go do costume changes and whatnot. So I met him, I auditioned for him, and that was in '96. And I got the job immediately, and I learned the songs for the first show within a weekend period of time, and did my first show in San Francisco, and was there till the day he died, performing with him and loving him to death. The highlight playing with James Brown was playing with James Brown and playing with such great singers and musicians and being given equal opportunity on the stage to shine, in which a lot of leaders of groups don't allow their performers to do that. And Mr. Brown was always giving somebody the spotlight at some time. So that was a highlight. Everybody got their fair shot of showing what they could do. And just being around somebody who knew everything and was so perfect and demanded the best of you, and for you to give your best, that was the highlight for me. I learned a lot. As far as traveling with James Brown and performances and shows and experiences with James Brown, the list is endless. I mean, we're members of the Prince's Trust. I've played for the King, I've played for the Queen, I've played for the President of the United States, I've done the Kennedy Center, I've done the G8 conferences. I mean, throughout, you know, 12 years of singing on the road with James Brown, I've managed to play just about everywhere in the world at least 3 or 4 times, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. James Brown, being who he was a very political figure for many years and a national treasure worldwide. So we had the opportunity to play for kings and queens all over the world. I mean, kings in Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, the King of England, the Queen of England, the Prince of England, you know, so many, many, because, you know, they really loved James Brown. I mean, every year the King and Queen would call James Brown and Eartha Kitt, and that's who he wanted to see. So we would go to Saudi Arabia and we would play for the Prince and the King, and we were members of the Prince's Trust, so the Prince of England, of course, the Prince of Wales. So we did a lot of charitable work and philanthropical work as far as that went as well. James and I had many organizations and charitable projects that we did and that he had been doing for many years. We did an annual James Brown toy giveaway. We did an annual James Brown turkey giveaway in Augusta, Georgia. We also are right now in the midst of creating a James Brown Scholarship Fund for poor children to go to college and get an education. We also fund inner city music school programs for inner city kids to learn the art of James Brown music, and we have different singers and entertainers that come in and do clinics to teach the kids, you know, how to play instruments, all James Brown music, of course, and then hopefully they get a guitar instead of a gun, you know. So those were things that were very near and dear to our hearts, and that I still fight for.
To date.
James Brown and I and the band, we've been on every major television show. David Letterman, Jimmy Fallon's show, Jonathan Ross in London, the BBC. We've done countless variety shows as well as DVD and pay-per-view events. We did a lot of, well, because of the enormity of the entertainer that he was, we had a lot more opportunities than most people did. I think the biggest crowds that we played for were London and Leeds. That was 2 million people. And at the G8 conference, Summit Conference in Glasgow, and that was, I think, right at 1.2 million. And Woodstock that was another right up there around the millions. But usually in Europe, our crowds were always much bigger. They seem to have a tighter grasp on their love for entertainers, especially entertainers that are icons. They know everything about them. They have every record. They know every song. And in the United States, it's a little more different, you know, as far as especially. Our black entertainers, you know, there's just a different respect that, for whatever reason, the United States hasn't quite picked up on yet, but Europe's got a real hold on it. The most thrilling point of my entire career was probably the times that James would purposely teach me a lesson on stage. And it was thrilling only because it was usually humiliating, and I learned something from it. But it was thrilling because he just kept you on your toes all the time. I mean, you had to be on the one, you had to do your choreography, you had to be looking at the man all the time. If he put his head up here, that meant take it to another bridge, take it to a different song, do a trill here, there, wherever. I mean, you had to watch him close doing baseball moves, so you just knew what song you had to do next. And he could change it in a moment's notice. So just being on stage with somebody that had the crowd in the palm of his hand and the band in the palm of his hand was thrilling every night. It was new. Every night it was exciting. There was never a dull moment with Mr. Brown, never a dull moment. Always exciting. Right now, in my career, I am working on writing the best album I possibly can, a debut record for myself as a solo artist. I'm 4 cuts into that record right now, and I have a bunch of original music on there that I think is, I'm really happy with it. I also have another group here in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I'm a huge Janis Joplin and James Brown fan, so I do a group called Pearl, where I do nothing but James Brown and Janis Joplin songs. And I have a group here in Las Vegas that I do that now for kicks, you know, make a few extra bucks, you know, have fun, you know, get it out, you know. Music is my therapy, so when I sing, it's like, you know, I'd rather do that than pay some therapist to tell me what I already know. As a solo artist, my ultimate goal is to release my debut record and to get back out on the road, to continue my music school and the charity events that I did alongside of my husband when he was still living, and you know, trying to raise my son, James Brown II, to be the best young man that he can be, and that's really it. You know, I just want to represent James Brown the best that I can, because he gave me an opportunity that I can only thank God and him for. Backup Divas, to me, is an opportunity for all of the amazingly talented singers that have backed up these entertainers to get an opportunity to finally come out from under the cape, so to speak. because there are so many talented people that have not been given the recognition that they so rightly deserve, because it's so hard to be recognized when you're in the presence of greatness. You know, your job is to support that greatness, to make that greatness as the best it can be. So I think that Back Up Divas is going to finally give us an opportunity to show the world even how much more great these people were that taught us how to do the things we're doing now.